I had Gloria Stewart into Rose's reveal, into their introduction at the bow of the ship, she and Jack, and into Billy Zane, kind of confrontation at breakfast, into their first kiss, and directly into the sinking, straight into a bucket of ice cold water. And the room was in hysterics. I mean, it was such a bizarre experience. I had no idea what the reaction would be. I just put on a little cassette player, my CD of the soundtrack, just playing in the background. And that's where it started. And it kind of felt like a blip in time.
Titanic Talk with Nelson Aspin and Alexandra Boyd. Here we feature stories from the independent documentary Ship of Dreams Titanic Movie Diaries and everything else to do with the iconic ship. From James Cameron's epic groundbreaking movie to the history and legacy of Titanic herself. Actors, historians, authors, descendants and fans come here to talk about Titanic. This is your first-class ticket to everything aboard the Ship of Dreams.
I'm Nelson Aspin, and you're here at Titanic Talk, everybody's favorite podcast for all things related to the Titanic, whether it's the historical event, the 1997 James Cameron film, or any possible satellite offshoot thereof. I'm all cozied up in my Titanic Talk sweatshirt. Of course, we have a whole line of Titanic Talk merchandise available. And I'm really looking forward to today, because today's guest is going to prove to you that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. If you take your passion for something you personally love, life is grand. And this gem of an individual, Alexandra tracked him down and she got him for us today. My co-host, Alexandra Boyd, the filmmaker behind Ship of Dreams, Titanic Movie Diaries. Please make the introduction.
Thank you, Nelson. And I love your sweatshirt, by the way. I have a sweatshirt. I sleep in mine. I don't go out in public. Maybe I need to start merchandising a little better, because nobody sees me in my bed. Well, my partner does, but anyway, my Kinnan is, well, the wonders of Instagram. I will, I'm a scroller. I'm a morning coffee scroller, and on my scroll about 6 months ago, I think, Michael's page came up because he does the most amazing one-person show, which we are here to talk about, which is coming up in Los Angeles in April and in New York in May, called Never Let Go. Michael Kinnan, welcome to Titanic Talk.
Thank you so much. It's really quite exciting to be found, and also to be connected with people that just appreciate every level of this kind of phenomenon.
Tell us about your show, though. Tell us what it is. We're all 4-year-olds and we're coming to a show. What, in words of one syllable, tell us what you do in your show, because it looks amazing, especially for us Titaniacs.
The show is called Never Let Go, the unauthorized retelling of James Cameron's Titanic.
Unauthorized. I love that. That's going to be really exciting if it's unauthorized. And obviously you have a Titanic origin story. And we've heard all of them. We've heard everybody's, but I want to hear yours. How did James Cameron's Titanic come to you, and then the thread lead to this one person show?
I mean, it's a long journey. We're talking 1997. Well, probably actually the beginning of 98. I was just turning 9. And my mother debated for months whether or not the movie was in theaters for so long, which was a blessing for so many of us. And so she debated all this time whether or not it would be appropriate after seeing it herself. And the decision was made to take me. I remember viscerally.
Was it the two of you? Was it just you and Mom?
It was just she and I. In Pennsylvania, where I grew up, just outside of Philadelphia.
Me too. Westchester. I'm from Westchester.
Oh, that's where my sister went to school.
There you go.
Yeah, we grew up. I grew up there, and I I know there was a lot of talk about kind of, nudity, but the the visceral reaction was to feel like I was drowning. I mean, you've never been in a world that felt so real at that age, or maybe for any age, for so many of us at that time, with the advancements that he was pushing. So I remember burying my head into the chair. It was very wet from my tears, and then just kind of blacking out a little bit and watching it a while later on TBS. So TBS and TNT, and they would just repeat it every weekend. And so I'd watch it and watch it and watch it. And it wasn't until college or high school, actually. I was teaching a little, theater workshop course for some younger students. And my partner and I, preparing for them to arrive, were just talking about Kate Winslet and talking about this kind of monster talent and extraordinary human, and how it all kind of tied back to connecting with her in this movie. And so that kind of blossomed a lot of things that I just kind of subconsciously already existed, in terms of why this woman's performance and character were so resonant. And so then we jump 4 years later to 2011, and I'm in my final semester in college, and I'm in a class called Beyond Naturalism, which is just meant to push the realm of what we view as very, kitchen sink drama. And we were assigned to do a 10-minute one-person piece that would represent ourselves. And the day of the performance, I really didn't know what I was going to do. And I just thought, why not do what I already know, which is every word of this movie. And I condensed it to 10 minutes. I had Gloria Stewart into Rose's reveal, into their introduction at the bow of the ship, she and Jack, and into Billy Zane, kind of confrontation at breakfast, into their first kiss, and directly into the sinking, straight into a bucket of ice cold water. And the room was in hysterics. I mean, it was such a bizarre experience. I had no idea what the reaction would be. I just put on a little cassette player, my CD of the soundtrack, just playing in the background. And that's where it started, and it kind of felt like a blip in time. I was in school for directing, so I wasn't really seeing myself as a performer at the time. I just kind of exploring my own limits,
Michael, did you know that? Did you rehearse and rehearse? It sounds to me like you knew the script and the dialogue so well, and the order in which everything came so well, that you could have riffed on it for 20 minutes, for 30 minutes, that you didn't have to, write everything down and flick through the script. Was it that, did it come that naturally to you?
That's a great question. The answer, absurdly, is yes. I absolutely, I had about literally 3 hours to put this together on that day. I remember it so vividly because it really is what's been defining my life since I was 21 years old, weirdly, unexpectedly. So
Why do you think that is? Have you ever tried to analyze or break it down? You must get asked quite a lot. It's
Sure.
fascinating to me how people are connected to this story. For you, what do you think that was?
Well, I think so much of it is timing. We were much less exposed to so many things. So the focus existed, and it was such, it just permeates so much of our culture. And the film could touch on so many aspects of genre, from action to romance to historic. And so you have just so many eyes coming to this piece: curiosity, fascination, skepticism, I like to say, because so many people are. And I've just seen it so many times. And part of it, I think, was the sort of gritty, I'm not supposed to be watching this, I'm still 13 years old, but also that everybody was watching it. And so it just seeped into my brain. It wasn't necessarily something I could even control. It was on television, and I would, as so many people have said, I know through your documentary, that you would just start wherever you were. I mean, we didn't have DVR, we didn't have, you know, access to anything besides the VHS, that you would have to sit and patiently wind and rewind. So just having it streaming on a cable network would be this kind of passive sublimation into your brain. So when it came time to do this, I literally just wrote it on a piece of paper so that I could beat it out. And and yeah, and it just happened.
We did an episode with one of the creators and stars of the off-Broadway musical Titanic. And it's a very similar public consciousness. Everybody on the planet, almost, at least in Western civilization, has seen Titanic, has some point of reference with that film. So whether it's a love letter or a satire, which I guess I haven't seen your show yet, but your show is both of those. It's a satire and a love letter. It's why the New York Times made it a critic's pick. It's why the stars of the film love your play as well. It's respectful, and but it's also a satire. So it's in everybody's consciousness. So talk to that. Give me the sales pitch about why we should see your show and when and how we can see your show.
Yes, so I have been really blessed to keep living in this performance, and it's changed as I have gotten older and more comfortable in both my masculine and femininity to live in all these worlds and decades, because you are playing a contemporary going back, 100 years. So the show really transcends people into this nostalgia that I think very few things can to as many people as it does. I've had 9, 8, 10-year-olds who were not alive when the movie was born come to the show. I have had, subscribers to theaters in Pennsylvania show up and just belly laugh. I've had also people in their 70s sit in the theater completely stoic, taking it extraordinarily seriously because of how accurate my performance can be. So it is exactly what you said, a love letter. And I've never considered it a satire. People can. The kind of line of camp that I ride is borderline satire, because you are dealing, when you extract the text from the spectacle and the accuracy of the visual, there's so much melodrama in it. And that was part of my point in developing the show, was to get people to hear both the high and low of everything without the distraction, without any sense of technical prowess, that you're just actually listening to a human story, and you're also listening to something quite absurd at times, but is in itself still very human.
I don't know if you're aware of Brittany and Ethan, who are in my documentary briefly. They're featured, but they're Titanic scene by scene. They're taking it to the podcast realm, and they literally break down. We're calling it, the next season has to be Titanic frame by frame, because she does break down the script, and they do count how many times they say, Jack, or Rose, you're so stupid, Rose. They've gone through the script so meticulously, and they only have 2 scenes left. They're going to be bereft when they finish this film. But it sounds a similar thing, is that when you break apart all of those many pieces that are in any movie, and then choose and then highlight. And I think it's like breaking down Chekhov or Shakespeare. There's so much there in the kernel, in the thread of the story. And it may be us answering our own questions as to why it perpetuates in such a classical way, as in classical theater or a classic movie.
And Michael, you say that the show has evolved over time. Does it ever change from performance to performance? Is every show unique? Every performance unique?
Two things. One, yes, I have had people see this show upwards of 15 times. So I try to really bring in something that will just surprise them every time. And it can be the most minor of moment, a glance that I picked up on in a most recent viewing, or something that I just know the fans will create. I mean, I developed this as a lover of the film, and also wanted to make sure that I was honoring the original tragedy and making sure that the gravity of that was not lost, which is why you'll hear a lot of tears truly in the theater in the last 5-10 minutes of the show. But I think, most recently, so last June when I did the show, it was on the heels of the submarine incident. And immediately a scene that I've never done before became prescient, and it's the one between Ismay and the captain, pressing him to light the last boilers. It never felt essential in the telling of my story, which is very much focused on Rose. And the moment I did it in silence, everybody was making fun of the situation in some capacity in memes on the internet. But then you had James Cameron in the news again for not Avatar. And it was so crazy to me how much it was mirroring. And I wanted people, that's why I do it. That's why I don't ever play anything campy that's not campy. I mean, the reality is women are still living under this construct of a men's gaze, and rich people, lots of people, are dealing with a hubris that is getting people killed. So I just, there's so much to pull from. I cannot do the entire film. I've never striven to do the entire film on stage, just tell the story that is at its core a romance and a memory piece of how so much was lost.
How long does the show run now? How long is the performance now?
It's an hour. It's always an hour. I do the show at Dynasty Typewriter in Los Angeles, which is right on Wilshire Boulevard, kind of in between downtown and Silver Lake. And it's a beautiful 200-seat space. The footlights are all shelled in seashells, so there's a nautical element the second you walk in. It's a gorgeous red curtain. I open the show. I don't really like to tell much about the show. I keep it quite tight, closely held, because the experience of being with an audience is so undervalued, I think. And that was a big part of why the show became what it is. I had put the 10-minute piece to bed, and then many years later, well, about 6 years later, I had decided that people needed to come back together. There was a lot of discourse. It was 2016 into 2017. And I felt if I could make people come together in a space where they don't normally watch live theater, but they have an access point to something they're already familiar with, something that they love or they make fun of, they love to make fun of, it just locked in. It made sense. The timing, I pushed it to happen in June of 2017.
It's comfort food. The film is comfort food.
It is. I mean, it really is. And then people's fascination with how will these things happen with one person and no set, it just brings them. And then they love.
But people fill in the blanks, and that's actually some of the most amazing stuff. Like we were, for example, in the documentary, we knew we couldn't use, huge chunks of the film, even though the actors are talking about being in the film. We've got, a fair use clause that allows us to use what we have. But instead, we got Dale, who's one of the fans, to do animated drawings. And in fact, at one point, we put in a bit more of the film. I was like, no, take it out. because everybody knows when you see those drawings, and they look like Jack's drawings in the movie, what a beautiful sort of piece of serendipity that doesn't go, look, I need to hold up, I need to show you this clip that I'm about to act out in the theater. You don't need any of that, because everyone's imaginations work so much better. Otherwise, go and see the movie, right?
And I would say on your behalf, Michael, your Instagram page is of Michael and Men, riffing on Of Mice and Men, of Michael and Men. And that's what we've been looking at and enjoying your clips and photographs and materials. So I know you don't want to give too much away, but we can get an idea of it. We're telling our audience to go to Instagram and see Of Michael and Men so that they can get a glimpse of the show. But I would like to, some of the things that we've seen there, I'd love to talk to you about. And it talks about, we heard that the sex scene of you, it's better, it's hotter than the scene in James Cameron's movie. I want to talk about that. And then some of the cast members from the film that you've had visit you at performances. So if you can tell some of those yarns for us.
Sure. Yeah, Elizabeth Vincentelli, who reviewed the show for the Times. I mean, it was again perfect timing. New York theater was just reopening, and there wasn't a lot that was coming to the stage that was new. And she was there opening day, and that was her review of my sex scene. The sex scene it's so intimate because the theater is so intimate. I mean, that space that I do it in Brooklyn is about 50 seats. So you're right there with me. And it is at that point in the show and in the film, well, in the show, you're meant to really buy that there are two people making love on stage, and that they are these young, sprightly, tense, excited humans. I'm no longer their age, but hopefully it's
captured. But you were once.
Exactly. And there's steam, there's sensuality, there's the iconic score, which, James Horner, we love you, truly. So I think the laughter comes out of shock at how people are feeling. They just don't remember how they felt until they're in it in the moment. And that adds to, I think, everything about it. Again, why I don't share this virtually is because there's that detachment that we already get in every other element of our lives, on our phones and on our Zooms. And so to have a moment of connection just transcends what you think of when you think of that steamy sex scene in the hand. I mean, it's all there. And as the fan that I am, like, I trust myself to hit the points that any fan would want to see. And so, yeah, that led to a really blessed interaction and connection through a friend of mine, Danny, who I met when I moved here to LA. He introduced me to Cindy, and Cindy happened to live very close to Frances Fisher. Last February, I was in tech for the show here in LA, and I was running scenes, and I just get a bunch of phone calls, which was really annoying because I just was busy. And so I called Cindy back, and she tells me that Frances Fisher, Billy Zane, and the Countess Rochelle Rose are coming to the show. And it's a lot to hear. When you'd been working on the show, when you'd been working on the show for as long as I had, and just performing for a bunch of friends and fans and family, it was an honor to do it in Edinburgh, right there near the origin of the ship and all of it. It was so much fun to bring people from you mentioned the Western civilization. I had people from Japan who would telling me that they would love to see me do the show there, because not speaking English, they would still know it. They would still understand every beat of the piece. Again, I had a child who had just come from the Belfast Museum of Titanic with a hand sketch of the ship he did that he had me sign. I mean, it was just so beautiful to have. I get emotional still to have the potential to do these performance or my performance homage to the original actors' interpretation of these people in front of them seemed pretty much no longer a dream. It seemed quite much, just impossible. And the tension didn't end there. So I jump back into tech and I'm doing it. And I'm getting my makeup in the dressing room on, and I do everything myself. I mean, that's kind of the gimmick, I guess, is I do my makeup, my costume. I'm my stage manager.
And no understudy, I assume.
I would love to see what somebody.
There could be no understudy. Who's going to understudy you? And all those characters.
It's been a question. It's been a question of mine, honestly. So Frances and Rochelle came backstage, and the warmth, the generosity, I mean, it was unbelievable. You had Frances just immediately jumping up on my corset to recreate the scene before. And so I got some of my bugs and feelings out, and they told me Billy couldn't make it. And that was fine. I was just having the most wonderful moment. So I do the performance, and I come out into the audience at one point, and I see a man that I think looks a lot like him, but I was told he wasn't coming. And so then during curtain call, he jumps up on stage and gets on his knee and, bows a bit to me. And it was surreal, to say the least. My mom, my sister, and my nephew were there. They had flown from across the country for the weekend, and it was all just true magic. And then on top of all of that, we go backstage. Frances is saying how badly she wants Jim to see it, Jim Cameron. And Billy is just telling me how much heart is in the show as people are just cackling, laughing. And just, to have so many people who I respect and admire articulate the things that I had hoped would be received and heard was just, yeah. I thought I would die a little bit, and I thought it would just be over.
The show doesn't get much better than that. And in fact, when I was sort of pressing you, like, do you have some clips from the show? And you're like, well, I've got the whole thing. And I was like, I don't watch the whole thing on video. I want to be there. I want IRL in real life, because everything you're talking about this show is about the experience, because everybody who comes will have had the experience of the film, and those of us that are in it, even my tiny part. I don't know if you know, but I auditioned for
I do.
And I got that moment where I didn't get that part, but James Cameron said, get Alexandra another role. And so they put me in a corset.
I want to ask you, before we run out of time, how we all can connect with you to be updated on the show and how to see it.
Well, I don't know if I told the two of you, but today or tomorrow, I'll be posting a new link for my second run during Fleet Week in New York at the Brick. I'll be doing it from May 22nd until June 1st.
Count me in, I'll be there.
In Brooklyn. I would love to have you there. I would love you to come up, Alexandra, if you're free, if you're available.
Oh my gosh, you're making my fingers itch about the thought of it. I need a trip to New York.
Exactly. And it's the most beautiful time in spring. So the Brick is having me back for the 5th time. I mean, it's been a lot. Again, you can find me on Instagram, Michael and Men. I have a little kind of dormant Instagram for the show, Never Let Go of the Show. Dynasty Typewriters website is live. Tickets for the show are available on the 16th, which is a day after the anniversary of the ship's sinking, the 112th anniversary, remarkably.
And you have merch, yes?
I have merch available on my Instagram as well. All of the links are there. A dear friend of mine, Frankie, she just took my image and bam, this website, you can get everything from a mug to a t-shirt to a sweatshirt to a baby's onesie, which all of my nieces and nephews have, to a pillow. Yeah, it's just this really beautiful blessing that I have, and I really can't thank the two of you enough for hunting me down, for pressing me to do this, because it's so nice to talk with both of you. It's so nice to talk about kind of the arc and journey of this show and how it does still remain kind of endlessly explorable. There's so much as I learn, as I get closer to Ruth's age, where I'm just like, wow, this is absolutely wild how I could just keep doing this.
But you look like you could be Billy Zane's brother. That's to me, that's, I think you guys look related, and it's not just the shaved head. And I will say,
Sorry,
Alexandra and I have a habit of collecting people, and all of our Titanic guests, fellow Titaniacs, we have this really marvelous and extraordinary extended family, of which now we will never let go of you. So we're so excited to have you as part of the Titanic Talk family, and excited to see your show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. Lovely, lovely. I can't wait to see it.
But yeah, thank you so much. And your documentary is such a thrill to be able to kind of immerse into all of these little stories that are untold about something that continues to be one of the most, if not the most, talked about film in history.
And just to sort of tie that up, it's my producer Elizabeth and I. She was very clear about giving voice to people who aren't asked those questions, those supporting actors who get to tell their story. And the number of times we've been asked, well, what is Leonardo DiCaprio? Isn't he was like, no. They've had their chance and they're asked all the time. These are people who get to tell you in the first person exactly what their experience of being on that film is. And then you unfurl it to 27 now years later, going on 26, 27 years later. And it's still the most extraordinary experience. And you're part of it too, Michael.
No, and we can truly never let go.
Michael, I'll email you. Let's figure out. I want to come and see the show when you're here.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, thank you so much.
Awesome.
Have a good weekend.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave a review. And if you'd like to hear more podcasts like this, hit the subscribe button. For information on where you can see Ship of Dreams, Titanic Movie Diaries, go to shipofdreamsfilm.com. Titanic Talk is a production of Ship of Dreams Film Limited. To celebrate Season 2 of Titanic Talk, we've launched a line of Titanic Talk merch. A cap, a mug, a tote, a t-shirt or a hoodie. You'll be sure to find a unique gift for the Titaniac in your life. Look for the link in the notes and on Instagram, or go to bit.ly/Titanic Talk Shop. And Nelson has a new book out. Dancing Between the Raindrops is a steamy page-turner full of all the tales Nelson can still remember from New York City in the 1980s. It's a coming-of-age story about friends in the era of big hair, padded shoulders, and punk rock. Dancing Between the Raindrops is available on Amazon, or ask for it at your local bookstore.